Hello there guys and welcome back to the channel. So in today's video we're going to be talking about Sasquatch and more specifically the deep dive video that Kabam dropped on us yesterday and the things that we can kind of take away from what we heard and what we saw in that video and kind of like further establish our hunch, opinion, prediction, call it as you will, where Sasquatch will lie in Marvel Contest of Champions. So I have taken some screenshots from the original video. Obviously, if you just type in Sasquatch deep dive, the video will show up on YouTube, so you are more than welcome to go and check it out in its entirety as well. And we're going to go over the good and the bad things. I'm not going to shy away from either side there. And first and foremost, I definitely must talk about Sasquatch's base damage, which is absolutely pathetic. Now, for such a huge guy, all of his mediums, well, they just deal no damage. They are not a wild beast kind of like damage that you would expect from him. All of his base damage, as we can see in most of these fights, and even the base rupture damage, is just tiny. He has absolutely no base attack modifiers, no base crit chance increase, no base crit rate increase, no base fury, no base attack boost, none of that stuff. So basically, none of his damage comes from his regular combos. All of his damage does come from his special attacks, mainly the special 2, which is like the big special, well, the big damage dealer, which is again very common trend in today's Marvel Contest of Champions, to a point where it's getting boring, because we have, in my opinion, far too many champions that have a lot of damage on level 2, no damage on level 1, or hardly any damage on level 1, and no damage in their base kit. And Sasquatch is one of those champions, so it's also comes to stand within reason. Like, if you shut down Sasquatch's power, he's effectively harmless, because, yeah, he just doesn't hit very hard outside of special 2. So that is definitely something to keep in mind. I'm personally not the biggest fan of these champions, and that's one thing that you are going to notice as well. Vast majority of kind of like top-end champions all have this common characteristic where they do not necessarily rely on being able to drop these mega special attacks in order to get through fights. Like Corvus often doesn't even reach a special attack. His level 2 is nice, but he has a lot of damage on his base combos on ramp up. Same as, I don't know, Omega Red doesn't rely on special attacks at all whatsoever. You have Ghost. Yes, Ghost does rely on special attacks to a degree, but even like the Ghost's base damage is with that guaranteed crit, so he can still accumulate a lot of damage just by phase hit, so on and so forth. And in my opinion, any champion that so heavily relies on purely having damage located in a single special attack immediately comes into Marvel Contest of Champions at a huge disadvantage, considering that we have, I don't know, power lock 1 nodes available, many different power dampening abilities and nodes, and so forth. And then also the entire fact that you will be hardly dealing any damage up until you actually kind of like blow up. Here we can see is a good example. We can see Sasquatch is already at 25 hits, which is approximately what it takes to reach level 2, and Winter Soldier is still at like 96%. Obviously, once he starts throwing these level 2, so on and so forth, the fight will go on much quicker, but that also pretty much immediately means and implies that Sasquatch is not going to be quick, casual questing killer. He will need a certain length fight to actually showcase his damage, which he does have. I'm not trying to say he doesn't, but let's say if you're going to have a rank 2 Sasquatch, you're going to bring him in uncollected, you're going to feel that he deals no damage, because by the time you get to level 2, well, that's the time you kind of expect the fight to be over already, pretty much. And we can see here that it simply will not be. So yeah, base attacks are just criminally low, which is sad. It's definitely something that's important to me, and I think it's important for a champion to have a decent access to base level of damage outside of like birthday special attacks. And yeah, here we can see that just don't seem too good. Now, another great ability that they showcase, and I'm going to disable my camera here for a second, is that power drain whenever opponent is at level 3 and you are in your Wrath of Tenrak is super useful. That's going to be like a mega useful ability. Basically, whenever you have Wrath of Tenrak active, an opponent is at 3 bars, so long every heavy attack and every special attack will drain 5% of opponent's power. It's not meant to kind of like actually drain opponent's power. It's meant to quite simply prevent opponent from throwing a level 3 in your face, which is something that will go perfectly with the super aggressive kind of like playstyle that Sasquatch will be able to have in many of the matchups, kind of like just smashing opponents up against the wall, dropping special after special, special after special, or just heavy attacks and so on and so forth. And that definitely does seem like quite an exciting time. Let me get that camera back on. And here we can see, obviously, we saw some nice 75k special attack crits. I think here is another one. So that's a single special attack. Here we can see that 49 hits and 48 hits. So yeah, both of them crit for like 75k with, I think, 6 or 7 raptures active. And that obviously is a good amount of damage. Now the question is, will it be enough to kind of like actually propel him into a good damage dealing champion? I think it will be, because that combined with his increased power gain will certainly let him explode. Again, the problem is going to be building up to the point at where you can explode, and having so little damage with anything else aside from a level 2. Even the champions who function quite similarly typically have some sort of artificial damage increase outside of single special attack. A good example here would be, for instance, Hulkbuster buff. It's quite clear that the main idea of Hulkbuster buff is build to level 2, shoot an opponent's block, drain opponent's power, spam 5 heavy attacks, then spam a level 1, spam a heavy attack, and that deals a whole lot of damage. But the point is, even if that kind of like system, the whole game plan, gets taken out, you can still maintain a relatively decent amount of damage by dropping a level 1, inflicting armor break on opponent, dropping some heavy attacks in the middle, having those shocks and therefore having that attack increase, and you have alternative ways of dealing damage. And Sasquatch is one of those champions that pretty much put 100% all of his eggs in this level 2 basket, which, to be fair, obviously he has much better access to than many other champions, with his increased power gain, with his discounted special attacks, which is going to be great for the champion, which can make him feel like a super aggro kind of like powerhouse. But realistically, from usability perspective and kind of like more different varied level of length fights, or that definitely doesn't seem to be too good for Sasquatch, because that just kind of like limits him a bit further, in my opinion. And yeah, so another thing that we definitely have to talk about is the huge health pool. He's gonna have like I think he's gonna be the biggest chunkiest lad in the contest, new health pool king. He's gonna also have access to quite a bit of regeneration while level 3, and via signature ability when he's below 40% if you get hit. And the thing is, obviously, with this massive health pool, you get quite a bit of advantages. For instance, willpower heal is going to be much more potent, and so on and so forth. But there's also like a downside to it, which in this video was trying to advertise as like a benefit, but which it really isn't. Which is the fact that Sasquatch has 0 armor. That means he will inevitably end up taking a lot of chip damage. Now, in the video, they tried to spin it in a way like, oh, look at it, he has no armor, so there's nothing to bypass, therefore critical hits will not be as effective. Yes, that is true. Critical hits will not seemingly be as effective compared to the rest of the hits. However, the fact that he has no armor will still make sure that he takes a lot more chip damage than the vast majority of the other champions. And that is also something that is to be kept in mind, that huge health pool will obviously come with a huge downside, which is the fact that you will need that health pool, because you will be taking a lot of damage for your parries, a lot of damage for your blocked hits. The only kind of like upside of having a huge health pool and no real armor is, yeah, the times when you get hit in the face, because you have more health, therefore you can take more hits, and yeah, critical hits do not seem proportionally be doing that much more damage as they typically are. All of those things being said, I still do kind of like believe that my initial assessment of Sasquatch was pretty much kind of like on point. I think he's going to be a champion that's easy to like. I think he's going to be a champion that there are going to be many videos made with OMG titles. Look at this, and this is really fun, and this is really cool, and these are big yellow numbers, and these are big or a big amount of debuffs an opponent, and all that good stuff. That's actually a cheese method that I definitely kind of like want to test out myself with Sasquatch. That basically would involve him just stacking up a huge amount of raptures, because his level 1 refreshes these raptures, and then dropping like a massive level 2. I want to see how big this level 2 can get, and if there's a limit to amount of raptures we can keep an opponent. But all in all, when it comes to practicality kind of aspect, the fact that he's going to be taking a lot of chip damage, the fact that his ability set just seems to have one speed, and that is aggro. It doesn't quite focus on being able to bypass auto blockers. It doesn't focus on being able to bypass evaders. It doesn't even focus all that much on like countering buffs as typically Mystic Champions do. He has some slither of power control, which will obviously help him push this aggressive playstyle, as in like he can power drain the opponent when they reach 3 bars of power, and if he's awakened, the opponent's defensive power rate is decreased in Wrath of Tenrak. So still, that doesn't really qualify him as a power control champion. And if he's not able to answer like any of these issues, and he really doesn't have any real immunities outside of like that cold snap 90% immunity, which is fantastic. I like the 90% cold snap immunity, but he's not immune to bleed, poison, shock, or incinerate. I doubt he will be a champion that will enable anybody's account to do content that they couldn't before. Maybe outside of variant 2, because he's an extra large champion. But in general, typically, I don't think pulling Sasquatch will be kind of like game-changing for anyone. On the other hand, I think that pulling Sasquatch will be one of the best things you can do for yourself when it comes to the enjoyment of the game. And if you just want to have fun in the realm of Legends and maybe some different matchups, test them out in some easier lanes of Act 6 and so forth. Because there will be definitely a lot of fun things he can do. He's going to throw a lot of special attacks, he's going to go unstoppable, you're going to be spamming heavy attack when opponent is jumping in between 3 and almost 3 bars of power, and you're going to get endorphins and enjoyment from that. And there are going to be some big yellow numbers, there are going to be some red numbers, and it's going to be a fun champion for sure. I fully expect that, and I do want to get Sasquatch purely for that reason, not because I think it's going to benefit overall strength of my account, or that he will enable me to do a certain piece of content easier than I have done. None of that stuff, just because he looks fun. I ranked 2'd 6-star Carnage because I love playing Carnage, and I find a lot of similarities in between Carnage and this champion, in the fact that they both can stack a lot of devos on opponent, and both have increased power gains, both spam special attacks, and so on and so forth. So I think it's going to be very similar champion in that kind of like sense, where yeah, you're going to be able to do some very pretty things that are going to be very easily advertised with huge OMG insane beyond god tier damage or whatever else on the videos, or you just gonna enjoy it for yourself. But realistically, I think once a couple of months go by, he's still going to be loved by community. He's just not going to be desired. I think he's going to be kind of like falling in that Squirrel Girl category, where nobody really hates on Squirrel Girl. Just nobody really thinks that she's a great champion either. I think he definitely has even more quote-unquote fun potential than Squirrel Girl does, though. But yeah, I think that is still where I stand on Sasquatch, what I have taken away from this video. So huge helpful, lots of regen, a lot of special spam, can drop some massive bombs on level 2s, however, has absolutely no damage on his base kit. His utilities far in between, he's going to be taking a lot of chip damage. So, as always in 2020, some good stuff and some definitely not that great stuff for our new addition to the contest. And I don't want to get weird here, but did they really had to design that little thing in between? I mean, really? Okay, I'm done. This video is done. Just gonna jump here, so I'm gonna let you wash your eyes with a little bit of Baby Yoda, and whilst you are being mesmerized by the beauty of this little green creature, why don't you do a favor for me? Pretty please, hit that like button, hit that sub button, hit all the buttons, share this video with your friends, tell your friends to subscribe, and RNGesus will bless them, or whatever else you need to tell them to get them to subscribe to my channel. But that being said, I'm done for today, and I'm gonna catch you guys soon. See ya!